and then I'm going to introduce you. So today we're joined by the lovely Kyla Thorne, who I have been working with for the last couple of months. My story is, and I'm sure lots of people will relate to this, is a pretty traumatic childhood that has impacted my nervous system and my health for many years. It's been quite terrible in many ways. And I was always under the impression that to sort out the trauma that stays in the body, you need to spend a lot of money, you need to constantly talk about it, that it's like this ongoing thing to get any result. And I've tried some of that stuff and I didn't really get much out of it, because for me, talking was reliving what I'd been through and then kind of making me angry because I was talking about it. So I came across Kyla through a good friend of mine who's also been through traumatic childhood. And she said that she loved what she was sharing, that she was doing a special technique where you do these exercises to take the trauma out. And what I loved about Kyla was she's been through pretty tough times herself, and I'll obviously let her share that with everyone. And she also does free consultations, which again, hardly anyone does that. They talk about what they can offer. You have to sign up and pay for it straight away, which, you know, if you don't want to work with them, then you've just wasted money. But I've been working with Kyla now for a while, and I can honestly say that the results have been quite life-changing, and I'm blown away by what movement can do. And also I've been listening to some special type of music. Again, that's been phenomenal. I've only been doing it for the past sort of 4 days, but what it's done for my nervous system is just phenomenal. So whenever I come across something that I think is quite profound, I want to share it with people, because I've always been quite a tricky person to get better in many ways. So thank you for joining us today, Kyla. I'm so happy to have you here. And if you could just introduce yourself with what you've been through and how you've gotten to do what you've been offering people, because your story is quite fascinating.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. It's one of those things that kind of burns in my bones, so I love to talk about it. I was raised in a very high control religious environment, emphasis on high control. So this isn't dissing religion, but high control, perfectionism, cult-like environment. And I thought that my childhood was pretty perfect because we had such a perfectionistic emphasis. I mean, it all felt perfect. It ran smooth. I followed the rules. I was a good girl. Never did anything wrong, really. I wasn't the rebellious type. And it was all well and good until I started suffering with depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and ended up having to quit my work in ministry, actually. As an adult, I just had to quit because the panic attacks were so severe, the depression, the anxiety. And so for the next few years, I just tried to be kind of floundered my way through life. And as a mom then, married and with 2 children, I ended up, I was in a situation where we had filed bankruptcy, and it was just like, on top of all the trauma I had been through, the financial stress was just like, and I came across a network marketing opportunity that I took advantage of and signed up with. And the products themselves changed my life so much to have energy and mental clarity and all of that. And so I was doing the business, right? Because I was excited, I was sharing, but I kept noticing that I would feel stuck, that I would have this excitement and then this crash, or I kept hitting roadblocks in my business journey. And I was experiencing so much emotional turmoil with all of these things that I was reacting to and responding to in my business. And it was, on one hand, so exciting and so thrilling and so life-changing to have a paycheck as a stay-at-home mom, coming from a high control religious background where the wife is just supposed to make sandwiches and clean the house, to be able to have a little bit of financial freedom while honoring the fact that I did want to be a stay-at-home mom. it was so good on one hand. And on the other hand, I felt like there was a lid on it because I was struggling so much with my mental health. And I ended up coming across a coach who was talking about the fact that what we've been through in life can impact our current situation. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And up until this point, I hadn't come to grips with the fact that I'd been through trauma. I was
Mhm.
still kind of under the illusion that my life had been perfect. Even though there was so much evidence that I had been through trauma, I was still, it was too much to come to grips with. And so I was avoiding that reality. But I began to acknowledge this reality that things we've been through affect things like our business. And I ended up becoming a life coach through that process, a life coach that takes into consideration. And so as a life, I was finding these like tools and stuff like that that were helping me in my life and in my business to some degree. But I always kept feeling like it was kind of a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back thing where I was still feeling this stuckness, often coming up against challenges that I couldn't completely overcome. And the emotional turmoil was making me miserable. And one of my life coaching clients told me about a therapist who specialized in religious trauma, which I had come to realize was a problem for me, that the past I had experienced was traumatic and had really impacted my life. I started to work with him, and turns out he was a somatic therapist who specialized in religious trauma. And so what he was doing with me was releasing the trauma from my body. And so I wasn't necessarily having to talk a lot about my past, but I was finally getting traction where it felt like, oh my goodness, so many things in my life are changing. Now they are actually changing without me having to white knuckle everything. Before that, I felt like when I would try personal affirmations, positive affirmations, it was kind of like the mirror was laughing back at me because I was so in so much emotional turmoil that nothing that I was trying to do was actually sticking. So I ended up being like, okay, this is what I want to offer my clients. This is what I want to offer my life coaching clients. I want to offer them something that I feel like provides that traction where the change is almost effortless, where the change just happens, where it's not a struggle, it's not a white knuckle, it's not a, I'm going to make this happen, because I no longer had that energy in me. I didn't have any fight left
Mhm.
because I was so burned out from trying so long and so hard to change. I needed something that would allow the change to just happen. And so that's when I became certified as a trauma recovery coach, became certified in the resilience toolkit, which is body-based tools that bring that sense of calm to the nervous system, and also then certified in the safe and sound protocol, which I think is what originally connected us.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes, that's right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that has just been a beautiful journey for me. I went from really kind of fighting myself and fighting these toxic beliefs and fighting what this had done to my body and to to how I felt about myself, to feeling some of those things, those beliefs, those bad energies just kind of fall off, and finding so much of my mindset just shift
Mhm.
because of the way that all of this was being released from my body. So that's how I got started. Did I leave out any details that I've told you that
No,
you want me to repeat that I
I mean,
forgot?
I'm just a little bit curious, like what when you grew up in that environment, what were they trying to make you think? Like, was it just every day God was mentioned all the time, or were you, because I know I follow you on Facebook, and you did a post about wearing nail polish and how that was a big deal because you weren't allowed to do that growing
Yeah.
up. Was it that kind of indoctrination where if you do this, you're a bad person? And was it that kind of stuff? Like, what sort of messages were you being told?
So the overall message, I'm going to say this again, this is not anti-religion, because I realize there may be some really dedicated religious people on this call, and this isn't against that, right? This isn't against religion.
Mhm.
This is against the cult like high control version. So I just want to make that really clear before I like blab the rest. Um, the idea I grew up with was basically that a couple things. One is that we exist for the purpose of vindicating God's character to the entire world and to all the planets. So that there's this battle between God and Satan is like this close to winning, and that what I do and say basically has the power to either let Satan win or allow God to win. And God is really depending on me and my example to let the whole world know, and let all the other planets that are populated and but haven't sinned like Earth has, and to allow them to be able to choose God. And so my life's purpose is to be a perfect example and to the entire world and to all these unfallen worlds, so that God can win. And the way to, and also to spread the gospel to the entire world. So the way that we do this is by being perfect, by always being cheerful, by not being angry. Women did not cut their hair other than maybe a simple trim. We didn't curl our hair, color our hair, no makeup whatsoever, no jewelry whatsoever, not even a wedding band. We wore long dresses or skirts, sleeves. We had to wear sleeves for sure. The goal was to not bring any attention to us, which we kind of brought a lot of attention because we ended up looking a lot like scarecrows. But the whole thing was like, it's not about you. You have to be invisible. You don't want to bring any glory or attention to you. All glory goes to God. And so for me, I got my first piercings, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe it's been more. I think it's 2 or 3 years ago. I got my very first piercings. I wore a mini skirt with leggings under it for the first time a few days ago. I wore holy jeans for the first time maybe a year or two ago. I started to wear pants for the first time since age 5. Maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. And these are all like really scary things for me, right? Because I've been taught that I am responsible for the salvation of the entire universe. And so everything was micromanaged, from the way that we breathed to what we wore to what we ate. Like it was a sin to eat cinnamon or black pepper or different ingredients like that. And so every area of life was micromanaged, from what we wore, what we ate, what we thought, the music we could or couldn't listen to, the books we could or couldn't read, absolutely no TV or movies whatsoever. And like anything, there's some truth in it, right? There's some truth to taking care of your body and being careful what you're ingesting, but it was micromanaged down to the nth degree. And that ended up having an effect on my nervous system. All those beliefs about, which of course is a little hard to explain, but all of this ended up having an effect on my nervous system, to where my body was storing all of this just congestion and all this raceness, all this perfectionism, and all this weight of the world.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I can relate to some of it, because I think we all get some control pushed onto us from our parents, but that is very extreme, and I just can't imagine what that was like, because no one is perfect, and to be told that you have to be, the stress from that would have just been extraordinary. And did it impact your physical health as well? Like, did you suffer from fatigue, or you just felt awful?
I did develop an autoimmune disease. I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. As a child, a lot of the health issues were kind of not apparent because we were so clean with our eating, right? So clean and so careful. But as I became a teen, I ended up struggling with a lot of fatigue, with extra weight, with skin problems. I guess I had the skin problems when I was a child also. So there's a lot of overlap, right? Like, how much of it was the antibiotics that I took as a small kid that are no longer on the market because they're too harsh? How much of it is the stress? Like, right, there's always multiple factors at play. But for sure, yeah, my health was impacted, and there's, statistically such a close connection between stress, trauma, and autoimmunity. So
yeah, I think that's what I've realized. I've spent so many years and so much money on supplements, and yes, they've been amazing, but very rarely do they help get all your trauma out. And I'm just blown away by the short time that we've been working together and what that's done for me. And people don't really know that this is available and that it's possible to feel better pretty quickly. And that's what I love about it. So did you want to share with everyone the presentation that you've got about like the different types of nervous systems?
Yeah.
Is that what you, because what you showed me when we did the consultation?
Yeah, I want to do that. And of course, I didn't prepare and open it on my screen first. You know, it's like not open
Right,
on my
well,
computer, so I have to go look for it. But before I do that, I just want to kind of share a little bit about why this really gets me fired up. And that is because when I was struggling so much in my business, there was so much well-intentioned advice about my mindset and about like just choosing different thoughts and choosing different emotions. And it really, it added to my turmoil when I couldn't just fix myself, when I couldn't just change my mindset, when I couldn't just let it go, when I have a really good work ethic. That is one thing I do take from my childhood that I'm grateful for, is that I was taught how to work hard. And so to feel like I am responsible and successful in other areas of my life, but all of a sudden I'm running into all these roadblocks. And then I felt like the personal growth world was putting so much shame on me for still being stuck.
Yeah.
There was, I felt like the positive affirmations, like I said, were laughing at me, and no matter how much I would try and do, it wasn't changing me. And so the shame of that, the shame of feeling successful in other areas of my life, but here I'm stuck, was so profound that when I came across this model that I'm about to share with you, and this explanation for why humans do the things they do and why I felt the way I felt, I still get giddy about it. So yeah, I'm going to open that, and then I can share my screen if it allows.
Yeah. And while you're getting that, I'll just tell everyone that the reason why I wanted to work with Kyla was obviously a very good friend of mine recommended her to me, but I was watching her on Facebook, and I feel like you can tell a lot about people that, you know, to me, she genuinely is walking her talk. She's taking great pleasure and happiness in her family. She's making good food. Whenever I speak to her, she's just so lovely. So I know that what she's teaching us to do has really worked for her, because there are a lot of therapists out there that really, they might have learned these things, but are they really walking their talk? Have they really sorted a lot of their issues out? Some of them, no. So yeah, I just love, I'm so grateful to have met you, because you've helped shift some stuff in such a quick time that I can't believe it, really. And I've mentioned you to other friends, and they're all saying the same thing, that you're just so lovely. Your empathy is just so profound, and they're already feeling better. So yeah, I'm just very glad that we're all here today.
Thank you. I like to say I'm not the magic. It's these tools. It's this framework. It's all this. That's the.
Oh, sorry. I've just muted you, and I meant to give you the co-host. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. You may have to unmute yourself there.
I did.
Oh,
It's okay.
sorry.
It's not the first time I've been muted.
Oh, second eye. Right. So I'm going to give you hosting now, which I think means you can take over the screen.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's try that.
Sorry, everyone.
It's not about being perfect, right?
I'm definitely, I never will be.
So, okay. So this here is an oversimplification of a part of our autonomic nervous system. So when I say autonomic nervous system, some of you may know what that means. It's the part of our body that automatically keeps us safe. So while we're sitting here, none of us are having to wait, I need to remind my heart to beat. I need to remind myself to breathe. I need to, just a second, I have to tell my food to digest. Like that's all happening automatically to keep us alive. It's just part of our body that's doing the things without us having to tell it. And this here is a simplification of how our body responds to stress automatically without us having to stop and think about it. So this is a simple 3-tiered stress cycle. Here at the bottom, we have safe and social. This is kind of also referred to as rest and digest. This is how we feel when we're calm, creative. This is when our relationships work well. This is when we feel patient, kind. This is when we get the creative ideas for our business. I like to use the example of being outside and the birds are chirping, the sun's shining. Maybe we have a good book, a really delicious drink, and we're good. You know, we're calm, we're peaceful, and we're in the safe and social state where we are intended to spend most of our time. This is where our body works well. And out of the corner of our eye, we see a bear coming out of the woods. Our nervous system, without our consent, without us going, I wonder what I should do right now, is going to bolt into one of these other states for the purpose of keeping us alive. If the bear is far away, it'll probably go into flight. Just get the heck out of there, right? It'll, blood flow to our arms and legs. Our heart rate's going to increase. I keep whacking my earrings. I love big earrings. I'm overcompensating for my back.
Love it.
I have no shame in my earring game. I will be loud, proud, and noticed now because I had to be visible and muted. Just, get out of there, right? Like our physiology is going to shift to just get us out of there without our permission. If the bear is closer, it might put us into fight where we fight the bear off. If the bear is standing over us or like super close, our nervous system may make the decision that freezing is the best way to survive. You maybe seen cat and mouse, right? Where the mouse freezes and the cat loses interest and the mouse is able to get away. Sometimes that can help us, right? If we are limp, the bear's like, oh, this wasn't fun, and takes off, right? Or if it's gross, if it's going to maul us, being numb means we don't have to feel the experience to the degree that if we're in this state right now. Appease there at the top is more between same species. So from dog to dog, we see like one dog will like growl and the other one will like cower and tuck its tail. And this can happen between person to person where we just say or do whatever we have to do for them to just stop. This explains a lot of why we're like, why didn't I just run? Well, our nervous system made a decision. And this is again, an oversimplification of how our nervous system responds when we feel like we are in danger without our consent. Our nervous system is intended to do this. It's there to keep us alive. It's intended for lions and bears, occasional stress. And then the goal is that if we survive, our nervous system will come back down to safe and social and we'll be able to go on with our lives. The problem is that many of us were raised living with a lion or bear. And so our nervous system goes up into these states in order to survive, pumping all that stress hormones, doing all that stuff to our body, shifting our physiology to just get away or be numb, which is great to survive. But if we end up having to go into those states either so far or so often just to stay safe, whether it's what we would consider trauma or whether it's just what people would call stress, that we get stuck in those states, and those states have side effects. Any thoughts on that before I go to the next slide that shows what that looks like for our bodies and for our mindsets?
Well, if you're stuck in the freeze, which I've identified I have been, you're going to feel physically tired, I think, too, and that you may have trouble feeling joy, because I've always had that. My joy is sort of short-lived, even though I've got all these amazing things going on. It's a very fleeting moment, and I can come across quite cold with my emotions. Ask my husband, he'd say that as well. And then also, like, I love people, but I don't really like being in big crowds. Like, if we were all together right now in a room and there was like 50 people, that would freak me right out. So for me, in a social environment, a lot of people is not safe for me. It's like a anxiety ridden experience because it's very overwhelming. And I've always wondered what was wrong with me. But after going through this with you, Kyla, I get it now. I get it. I get that my childhood has impacted my nervous system that has led to this difficulty in feeling joy, difficulty in wanting to speak to loads of people. So yeah, it's been really great to figure it out, because I was always thinking, you know, I'm abnormal, what's wrong with me? But I understand the cause now.
I like to say that stuck is a nervous system state. Stuck
Yeah.
isn't just, oh, I can't, you know, I'm just not doing things right, or I'm broken. It's a nervous system state. So
Yeah.
this second page and final page of this PDF is just different signs and symptoms of what state we're in. And I like to just go over this briefly to kind of just make that connection between, oh, what I'm feeling is just a nervous system state, to release some of that toxic shame that the personal growth world can put on us for just not choosing a better mood. So I'll start with safe and social. And it's okay if like you're like, oh, I know I relate to some of these, but not others, because these are just options of what we might feel in this state. So in safe and social, mentally, we tend to feel curious, clear-minded, creative, flexible, having focus and concentration, positive outlook, peaceful, ease, emotionally happy, joy, love, even mood, physically vibrant, relaxed muscles, even breathing, moderate heart rate, easy digestion and elimination, expressive facial movements, vocal prosody, where our voice is melodic, not barky. Socially, we'll naturally feel attuned, responsive, interactive, and patient. And this is just because there's no bear after us, right? Like, this is just because our body, our nervous system feels safe. And so it has the capacity to feel these things. Yes. Any thoughts on that, or anything that you wanted to add before I go on to the next state?
Nope.
No. Okay. So in fight, fight, we will tend to feel over-focused or unfocused, difficult concentration, again, because there's a bear on our tail, negative outlook, rigid, repetitive thoughts, like, how am I going to get safe? Rapid thoughts, irritable, annoyed, angry, rage, worried, anxious, afraid, terror, panic, tight muscles, fast, shallow breathing, fast heart rate, cold hands and feet, sweaty and hot, dry mouth, poor digestion, constipation, restless, agitated, shaky, fast speech, eyes darting, poor sleep. It's really hard to sleep when there's a bear on your tail. Impatient, self-focused, confrontational, and avoidant. And I invite each of you, as you're listening, just think like, oh, are those things that I feel sometimes, or a lot of times, or is that where I spend a lot of time, a little bit of a time? And I invite you to notice that these are a normal response to having a lion or a bear very close to you. No one's going to judge you for having a negative outlook if your nervous system believes there's a bear. Like, no one's going to be like, oh, hi, bear, I'm just going to positive vibe you out of here. No, you just get out of there when there's a bear there. Everything here is just a result of the nervous system state that we're in, how our nervous system is responding to the environment, which may or may not be accurate now, but it is there because of what we've been through in the past. In freeze, we have, and freeze was my home away from home, hopeless, stuck, trapped, overwhelmed, scattered, spacey, dreamy, confusion, blank mind, forgetful, numb, apathy, and shame, very tight or overly soft muscles, slow heart rate, slow, shallow breathing, numbness, dizziness, pale, unfocused eyes, blurry vision, a flat facial expression, monotone voice, clumsy, socially feeling disconnected, non-responsive, shut down, and checked out. So those are some of the signs, maybe not all, maybe not inclusive of everything, and also doesn't necessarily mean that we will feel all those things, but some of the signs and symptoms. And so what my experience did for me through the environment that was provided for me, the body-based tools, what they did for me is they taught my nervous system, hey, you don't have to be in freeze, appease, you don't have to be in fight, flight anymore. It is safe to be in safe and social. And what that did for me is allow my mindset to naturally shift, because our mindset is just the natural result of our stress state. If our nervous system is in flight fight, we're naturally going to believe that the world is a dangerous place. If it's in freeze, we're naturally going to think all is lost. If we're in safe and social, we're naturally going to have hope and opportunity. And so what we do when we shift this in our bodies is we get our biology on board. It's kind of like, y'all are in the supplement world also, right? So you know the magic of getting your biology on board. It's kind of like if you're really craving sugar, right? And it feels like you can never reach that health goal because all your body wants all day long is sugar. But if you can, like, through taking a supplement or some sort of body hack, turn off those cravings, all of a sudden you're unstoppable, right? It's like, it's a non-issue. You don't have to white knuckle it anymore. And so that's kind of what this is doing, is it's getting our biology on board. So we're not having to deal with the lion and bear and the goals at the same time.
Thank you. That was amazing. It just makes so much sense, but most people never have that explained to them, and we don't know that what we're feeling is not abnormal. Like, it shouldn't be normal, but millions of people are experiencing the same thing, and there's always a reason why, because everything is a chemical reaction, isn't it? And that's what happens, is the stress will, too much cortisol, too much adrenaline, and the more often that that's done, it reprograms your nervous system. So even though you might be telling yourself, I'm going to try and do this, I want to fix that, until you get your nervous system more in balance, it's kind of in control of you and not the other way around. So that's why all this stuff that you're telling us about is just so helpful, because it really works. I can't, say anything but that, because I've seen it, and my friends that are doing it are seeing it as well. Did you want to share with people, when they work with you, what does that involve? Talk about the exercises, not necessarily show people what they are, of course, but and then talk about the safe sound protocol as well, because the combination of those two things is just wonderful.
Sure. So obviously there are so many modalities. I haven't tried them all. I'm definitely not certified in all of them, but these ones I'm particularly passionate about because they changed my life and they worked for me. So the Resilience Toolkit that I am certified in is a series of body-based mindfulness and movement tools that send the message to the body through simple movements. Hey, you can relax now. When I say all this, we're assuming you're in a safe environment, right? Like, if you are in a situation where your life is daily being threatened, right? Like, maybe let's get out of that situation, not do these tools, right? So we're assuming we're living in a situation where we're fairly safe. I mean, as safe as we can be, right? And we're wanting to let our nervous system know that the past is no longer here. And so what these tools do is they bring that nervous system down out of those upper states, that freeze, appease, that fight, flight, down to safe and social through simple movements. There are some smaller tools that in my sessions, I demonstrate and then invite you to do also, always allowing you to see it before you practice it, so that there's no non-consent, right? Or feeling of pressure to do anything you haven't done before. But the star of the show, I will call it, is the therapeutic tremor that really changed my life. And the therapeutic tremor is basically turning on the ability that mammals have to shake to discharge stress. I'm guessing most of you have seen a dog shaking in a thunder and lightning storm, or maybe you've been on the scene of an accident and the person can't stop shaking and everybody's trying to make them stop. Or maybe you've talked a little bit about your past. I know I've done this, where I'm talking on the phone to a friend. Oh, this happened, that happened. And I just start shaking. My voice starts shaking and I can't stop. And as a society, we kind of look at that as, oh, that's a problem, make the shaking stop. But turns out all mammals have this ability. We see it in the wild, where PTSD isn't common with wild animals, even though they're living under constant threat. that one animal survives a chase by a predator, when they are able to evade capture, they will shake to discharge that energy and then go back to life as normal. Not to completely compare ourselves to animals, but all mammals have this ability. And so what the therapeutic tremor does is, in an environment where we are in control through certain body-based mindfulness and movement tools, turns that gentle shaking on in our body in a way that feels good. Actually, it sounds pretty different, but in a way that feels good. And then because we are the one that turned it on, I like to say we're the boss of these tremors, and through one simple movement, turning them off, so that we're not left feeling like, oh my goodness, I can't stop, right? Because that would feel unsafe and that would be counterproductive. The therapeutic tremor is the biggest thing that my therapist used with me. And that's why I wanted to get certified in it myself, because I saw over time a few things. One, in the moment, oh my goodness, I feel safe. My mind feels quieter. The fear is just gone. Over time, that allowed those toxic beliefs to leave my body, right? The feeling of, I can't do this or that or the other because the whole universe is watching. And it literally has the power to release the trauma and tension patterns that are stuck in our body. And so it's very potent, something that we definitely don't recommend doing on one's own until they've been properly facilitated, because it really can bring things up, but we do it at a pace that doesn't. And so that's my favorite in the resilience toolkit, because it's so profound. And I just, my clients, they're like, oh my goodness, I feel like I just had a Xanax. I feel like I just smoked weed. I feel like I just hung out with my best friend. I never feel like this.
Yep.
And it's not me. It's this amazing tool that just doesn't require anything but following a certain set of movements to allow the body to do what it's good at, and that's to heal in an environment where it's safe to do so. And then the Safe and Sound protocol that brought us together is an auditory intervention that's been developed by Dr. Stephen Porges and a crew. He's the father of polyvagal theory. If you've heard of that, it's a really big, complicated word to describe this simple stress response system, 3-tiered stress response system. And it is literally music that's been filtered to enhance the things that feel safe to our nervous system. So you literally listen to filtered music through headphones, and it has a profound effect on the nervous system. It's the closest thing we see to healing autism in children. It really helps children with like things like oppositional defiance, selective mutism, all these things in children that we just don't know how to help, that are the result oftentimes of a dysregulated nervous system. I'm obviously oversimplifying here. I'm not saying that it is a cure, but because of how it's going in and helping reprogram the nervous system and bringing safety has a profound effect. So we're also using it with adults. I myself have done it. I've done it for my kids. I provide it for my clients, and has a real profound, deep, quieting effect. My therapist, who I no longer see as my therapist, but told me when he was supporting me in getting this training and telling me, hey, if this is what you want to do, here's what I suggest you get trained in, shared with me that in his practice, he has observed that when nothing else will work, the therapeutic tremor and the Safe and Sound protocol seem to do the trick. So I'm pretty excited about it. The results I see in my clients are at the end of the first session, being able to say, okay, I feel better, instead of that big detox. Oh my goodness, I've opened up a can of worms. Like, I'm just going to have to go sleep for a week. And sure, there can be some unearthing and some feeling and some not being so numb anymore, right? There can be some uncomfortability with healing. But being able to feel better, start feeling better immediately in the moment. And good therapy. Now, I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, but in good therapy, there's 3 steps to healing. 1 is stabilization. 2 is processing the trauma memories. And 3 is integrating that into our lives. A lot of therapy skips stabilization and jumps straight to processing trauma memories. And so it's like, hey, you're drowning, let's throw you in farther. And it just doesn't work for most of us. And so what this work does is it throws a lifeline and says, hey, you're drowning, let's come into shallow water. Let's get you out of that deep water. Let's feel okay in the day-to-day. Let's reverse how this is messing up your life now. And then let's address the trauma that's left, because it releases so much of it anyway, and go from there.
Amazing. And what I love about it is it's helping obviously myself and my children, and that I can teach them some of the exercises for a self-soothing thing. In fact, it's not one I taught her, but my 7-year-old came home from school the other day and something upset her, and she started tapping herself here. And I said, who's taught you that? She goes, oh, we get told to do that at school when we're stressed or angry. And I was like, that's brilliant. Like, that's what we need to do. We need to teach our children that there's things they can do in the moment when they're angry or upset, rather than say, don't cry. Like, it's let it out. Let's show you what to do. And the difference for their health and their mental well-being in the future, because of what we've taught them, will be just incredible.
And instead of being bad girl or bad boy or stop reacting like that, it's I can see your nervous system's feeling unsafe right now. Like, how can I support you? What do we need? Like, it's a whole different mindset, right? It's a whole different framework from being bad or broken to this is a normal response to whatever my nervous system is picking up right now. There may be no lion or bear in this moment, but my nervous system is picking up a cue, especially for kids, are picking up cues that we can't see.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine, because you've been through all of this and it's changed your life, that your relationship with your husband is like way better. The relationship with your kids, like the way you parent, must be just completely different and just more joyful, rather than they annoy you and you get angry. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. And my children are my barometer. My business was the first thing that kind of pushed me into getting help, because I was like, it was about money. It was about like, oh my goodness, like I need money, right? Like, I can't, do this bankruptcy thing. I can't do this, like, how do we buy toilet paper thing? I can't do that. I need to make an income, right? So that was kind of a first incentive. But then I began to notice that the way I was parenting, based on the model I was raised with, wasn't feeling good. It wasn't working well. And that just a messy house would make me feel like my head was going to explode. And so my children became then also my incentive, because I wanted to be able to respond to them patiently. I wanted to not have to send them to therapy. They may still need to go to therapy, but I'm just saying, like, I wanted to do the least amount of damage to them as possible. And so, yes, my relationship with my husband vastly improved, because our nervous systems ping off of each other, especially our children, but also our spouses. So if we're sending out those danger, danger, danger signals, the mammals around us are going to be feeling danger, danger, danger. And so the calmer I am, the calmer my children are. And I'm not going to say it's all sunshine and roses. My daughter and I had a little tiff right before this call, and I'm like, what bad timing? She's going through hormonal changes, and her nervous system is just like really over the top right now. And I'm about to put her through the Safe and Sound protocol again for that purpose. But in general, like, I feel like being a mom and being a wife is so effortless and full of so much joy. There's some, work in there too. I still have to, do some challenging things, but it doesn't feel like
Sounds
a
like
fight.
there's more good moments than there are stresses, whereas it probably
Yes.
was the other way around. And yeah, it's frightening knowing what kids are experiencing with the hormones, and it's obviously toxins and stress. And it terrifies me really, because I had a terrible time, pre-puberty, during puberty, after puberty as well, with hormones, and they're really going to need our help. So I think the combination of what we're doing with the supplements, with what you do, like, we can make some real changes here for kids. But thank you so much for sharing everything today. And I'm going to make sure in the group we put your details so people can start. What's the best way to follow you? Is it through Facebook or Instagram, or should I share both?
Yeah, both are good. I don't have a professional website. I started building that, and people were coming to me through my personal page. And so I just haven't prioritized that. So I invite people to follow me or friend me on, or follow me on Instagram, friend me on Facebook. Also, I can be texted or emailed. If anyone is feeling like they want this kind of support, feel welcome or free to reach out to me for your own complimentary consultation. Usually this is the information that I cover in a complimentary consultation, but also I realize if you're looking for this type of support, you may want to connect directly and say, this is my problem though. This is how it's manifesting for me. Do you think that this would help me? And I'm happy to have that conversation and review any of this as necessary. But if this isn't the kind of support you're looking for, I completely honor that. And I think the nugget I want to like leave for everyone, like free of charge nugget, is please view yourself and others as a walking nervous system. It explains so much of why we do what we do. It takes away so much of the shame and the blame. It doesn't excuse behavior that's toxic, right? It doesn't excuse anything. It just helps explain. It helps us to create better boundaries, it motivates us to get the healing we need to stop the toxic behavior. But to me, it's a lens into understanding and compassion, and shifts it from what is wrong with you to what happened to you. And then that is a launching pad to change, not as an excuse, but to change in a way that's compassionate for ourselves and for others.
Thank you. And doing this work and getting your nervous system balanced will actually lead to living a longer, happier life, because, you know, a lot of scientists are realizing that when your nervous system is a mess, the whole body is in a frantic state, and you feel it mentally and then you feel it physically, and it leads to disease. So I do think this is one of the most important things you can do for your health, which will benefit others because you'll be more pleasant to be around. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching. I'm going to go do a post in the group with Kyla's information, so feel free to follow. And she does do a free consultation, so if you do want to work with her. And another thing I'll mention is you don't have to get locked into buying a big amount of sessions. You just pay as you go. So I think that's another thing that I love about you, that you do that, because people can, you know, do this at their own pace. If you only have a certain budget, you could do one a month. It's up to whatever suits the person. And thank you for doing that, because it's all part of the stress-free stuff that you offer.
Yeah.
And normally I'd open it up to questions, but I know there's another webinar that's happening now with Touchstone. So thank you everyone, and thank you especially Kyla. And yeah, I'm really happy to have done this with everyone, so thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you providing this.
Absolute pleasure. And we will be in touch. Bye everyone, have a good day.
Bye.
Stop.